The vast emptiness of space held many secrets, but none would shake the Galactic Empire quite like their discovery of Earth. For thousands of years, the Empire had expanded unchallenged across the stars, bringing countless species under their rule. Their technological superiority had never been questioned, until now. Admiral Stone of the Imperial scout vessel Eternal Light watched the blue planet through his ship's observation deck. His mandibles clicked in amusement as he observed the primitive space stations orbiting the world. The humans, as they called themselves, were still fighting among themselves over resources and territory. Their crude satellites and basic space vehicles seemed laughable compared to Imperial technology. Such a waste of time, Stone muttered to his second-in-command. These creatures barely have a unified planetary government. Standard procedure. We show our power. They surrender. We add them to the Empire, just like always. Following standard Imperial protocol for first contact with developing civilizations, Stone ordered his ship to position itself above Earth's largest city. The Empire had perfected this approach over centuries. A display of overwhelming force usually resulted in immediate submission. The massive Imperial vessel descended through Earth's atmosphere, its golden hull gleaming in the sunlight. Stone expected the usual panic, the rushing of primitive military vehicles, and then the inevitable surrender. He had performed this procedure dozens of times before. But something was different this time. There was no panic, no scrambling of aircraft. Instead, Earth's orbital defense platforms, which had appeared inactive and primitive, suddenly came to life. What the Empire had dismissed as simple communications satellites revealed themselves as advanced weapon systems. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, voice trembling, "we're detecting energy signatures unlike anything in our database. They're not using standard plasma or laser technology." Before Stone could respond, the first human weapon struck. It wasn't a beam or a missile. It was something else entirely. The Imperial shields, which could withstand the strongest known energy weapons, simply failed. They didn't overload or break. They just ceased to exist. "Impossible," Stone roared. "Our shields are based on fundamental laws of physics." The second hit came from what appeared to be a small orbital platform. This time, the attack phased through their hull as if it wasn't there, targeting their engine core directly. Stone watched in horror as his ship's systems began shutting down one by one. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the surface," his communications officer reported. A human voice, calm and professional, filled the bridge. "Imperial vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. Your hostile approach to our population center has been noted. Consider this a demonstration. Leave now, or we will be forced to take more decisive action." Stone couldn't believe what he was hearing. No species had ever dared to threaten an Imperial vessel. His pride took over, and he made his final mistake. Launch all fighters. Show these primitives the might of the Empire. The moment his fighters emerged from the launch bays, hundreds of small human vessels seemed to appear from nowhere. They moved in ways that defied Imperial understanding of propulsion physics, turning at impossible angles and accelerating without any visible engine flare. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 5 minutes. The Imperial fighters, pride of the Empire's fleet, were swatted from the sky like insects. The Eternal Light, one of the most advanced ships in the Imperial Navy, was reduced to a drifting hulk. As emergency power failed and his ship began to fall from the sky, Stone realized the Empire had made a terrible mistake. These humans hadn't revealed their true capabilities until now. They had been watching, waiting, preparing. This wasn't just another primitive species to be conquered. This was something else entirely. The last thing Stone saw before ordering evacuation was a small human vessel approaching his crippled ship. Its pilot transmitted one final message. "We've been expecting something like this for centuries. Next time, try asking nicely. We'll be happy to talk as equals." As escape pods launched from the dying Imperial vessel, the news was already spreading across Imperial communication channels. Humanity was not what they seemed. The Empire had finally met a species that not only could resist them, but had been preparing for this moment for generations. In the Imperial Palace, thousands of light years away, the Emperor received the report of the Eternal Light's defeat. For the first time in recorded Imperial history, the Emperor felt something unfamiliar: fear. The war with humans had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The Imperial High Command sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the footage from the Eternal Light's defeat. The massive circular chamber, usually filled with confident discussions of conquest, now echoed with worried whispers. The loss of an Imperial scout ship was unprecedented. General Red, the Empire's most decorated military commander, stood before the council. His face showed no emotion, but his clenched fists betrayed his anger. This was clearly a fluke, he declared. No primitive species could possess such technology. They must have gotten lucky. The Emperor, watching from his elevated throne, nodded slowly. Then prove it, General. Take the Third Fleet. Show these humans what real Imperial power looks like. The Third Fleet was massive 50 warships, each capable of destroying a small moon. As they emerged from hyperspace near Earth, General Red smiled. This would be over quickly. But Earth had been busy in the week since their first encounter. The humans had transformed their orbital space. Stations that were previously visible had vanished, replaced by what appeared to be empty space. The primitive satellites were gone. Even their moon looked different, its surface now covered in strange structures. Deploy the fleet in standard attack formation, Red ordered. Target their major cities. Let's see how their tricks hold up against real firepower. The Imperial ships moved into position, their weapon systems charging. But before they could fire, something impossible happened. The empty space around Earth rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. "Sir," his sensor officer shouted, "something's wrong with our targeting systems. They're showing thousands of small objects appearing out of nowhere." The empty space was revealing itself. Countless human ships, previously hidden by technology the Empire didn't understand, suddenly became visible. They were everywhere, above, below, and between the Imperial ships. Red laughed. "Numbers mean nothing against Imperial shields. Open fire." The Imperial fleet unleashed its full power. Beams of energy capable of cracking planets shot toward Earth, but they never reached their targets. Instead, the human ships intercepted each beam with small devices that seemed to absorb the energy completely. Then the humans counterattacked. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, as if guided by a single mind. Later, the Empire would learn about human artificial intelligence, networked combat systems that could think and react millions of times faster than organic brains. The human weapons were unlike anything the Empire had ever faced. Some ships fired beams that passed through Imperial shields as if they weren't there. Others launched weapons that seemed to bend space itself, causing Imperial ships to tear themselves apart. "Impossible!" Red screamed as his flagship's systems reported multiple failures. "They're not following any known laws of physics." A message broadcast across all Imperial channels. "Your physics is just a small part of what's possible, General. We've had centuries to think outside your box." The battle turned into a slaughter. Imperial ships, the pride of the galaxy, fell one by one to human weapons they couldn't understand or defend against. The rigid Imperial battle formations, unchanged for thousands of years, proved useless against human tactics that seemed to break the rules of space itself. In less than an hour, 40 of the 50 Imperial ships were destroyed or disabled. The surviving vessels, including Red's flagship, could only watch as human ships surrounded them. Another transmission reached them. "We're giving you a chance to retreat. Take your surviving ships and go. Tell your Empire what you saw here. Tell them that Earth is not a prize to be claimed or a planet to be conquered. We are not your subjects, and we never will be." Red, his pride shattered along with his fleet, gave the order to retreat. As the surviving ships limped back into hyperspace, he realized that the Empire had made a catastrophic error in judgment. In the Imperial Palace, the news of the Third Fleet's defeat spread like wildfire. The Emperor, for the first time in his long reign, called an emergency session of all Imperial leaders. The humans had not just defeated an Imperial fleet, they had made it look easy. As the Imperial leaders gathered to discuss this unprecedented crisis, reports came in from across the Empire. The news of Earth's victory was spreading, and with it, something the Empire had never faced before: hope among their subjugated worlds. The Empire had intended to teach humanity a lesson. Instead, they had learned one themselves, one that would shake their civilization to its core. The war with humans was just beginning, and the galaxy was about to change forever. The Imperial leaders expected Earth to celebrate their victory and fortify their defenses. Instead, humanity did something no species had ever dared before. They brought the war to the Empire. In the Imperial capital, alarms blared as reports flooded in from across their territory. Human ships were appearing everywhere, seemingly at random, striking critical facilities and vanishing before the Empire could respond. "How are they doing this?" demanded the Emperor, staring at the holographic map showing dozens of simultaneous attacks. "Our fastest ships take days to reach these systems. They're appearing almost instantly." The answer came from a young Imperial scientist named Blue. "They're not using normal space travel, sir. These humans. They found shortcuts through space itself. They're not traveling between points. They're folding space." The Empire had always believed faster than light travel could only be achieved through their carefully mapped hyperspace routes. The humans had proved them wrong again. On the Imperial border world of Haven, the local garrison watched in horror as human ships materialized inside their defensive perimeter. The Imperial commander barely had time to sound the alarm before precise strikes disabled their planetary shields. But the humans didn't destroy the planet. Instead, they targeted only military installations, leaving civilian areas untouched. A message played across all frequencies: "We are not here to conquer. We are here to free." The Empire's response was slow and clumsy. Their massive fleets, designed for overwhelming force, couldn't catch the nimble human ships. Every time they gathered their forces to defend one system, the humans would strike 3 others. "It's like fighting ghosts," one Imperial commander reported before his transmission cut off. "They appear, strike, and vanish. We can't predict where they'll hit next." The Empire's carefully maintained supply lines began to crumble. Human raids targeted fuel depots, ammunition stores, and shipyards. They didn't need to destroy the Imperial fleet. They simply made it impossible for it to operate effectively. In the Centauri sector, an Imperial supply convoy found itself under attack by just 3 human ships. The convoy commander laughed at first. 20 Imperial warships against 3 human vessels seemed like good odds. Then the human ships demonstrated why quantity meant nothing against their quality. The first human ship released thousands of tiny drones, each carrying a weapon that could pierce Imperial shields. The second created what appeared to be localized time distortions, causing Imperial weapons to fire at where human ships had been seconds ago. The third somehow turned the convoy's own shields against them. The entire convoy was disabled in minutes, their crews evacuated into escape pods. As with all human attacks, no Imperial lives were needlessly taken. "You've got it all wrong," the human commander transmitted to the defeated convoy. "War isn't about who has the biggest ships or the most weapons. It's about who can think differently." The Empire tried to adapt, but centuries of unchallenged dominance had made them inflexible. Their tactics hadn't changed in generations because they'd never needed to change. Now, faced with an enemy who rewrote the rules of warfare daily, they found themselves paralyzed. Worse still, the humans seemed to know everything about Imperial technology and tactics, while their own capabilities remained a mystery. Every Imperial counter-strategy failed because the humans had apparently prepared for it long ago. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor received the latest reports. In just 1 week, humanity had struck over 100 Imperial systems. Their ships appeared and disappeared at will, ignoring the supposed laws of physics. Their weapons bypassed defenses that had been impregnable for centuries. "We thought we were the masters of space," the Emperor muttered, watching another red alert appear on the tactical display. "But these humans, they've been waiting for us, haven't they? Preparing. Learning. They knew we would come eventually." The final insult came when a single human ship appeared in orbit around the imperial capital itself, bypassing all its defenses. It broadcast a simple message before vanishing. "This is only the beginning. You can end this now, or learn just how creative humans can be when we're pushed." The Empire had started this war expecting an easy victory over primitives. Instead, they had awakened something they couldn't understand or control. And humanity was just getting started. As fears spread through the Imperial ranks, a terrible realization dawned. They weren't the hunters anymore. They were the prey. The Empire launched its largest intelligence operation ever, desperate to understand how humanity had become so powerful without their knowledge. What they discovered shook them to their core. Deep in the Imperial archives, analysts found ancient Earth transmissions they had previously ignored. Movies, books, and games spanning centuries, all showing humans preparing for alien contact. While the Empire saw these as mere entertainment, they were actually humanity's way of exploring countless possible first contact scenarios. They'd been planning this for generations, whispered Chief Analyst Green, reviewing the findings. Every piece of science fiction they created was a war game. Every story about alien invasion was a training scenario. They weren't just telling stories, they were preparing. The Empire's next discovery was even more shocking. Scans of Earth revealed vast underground complexes, hidden beneath mountains and oceans. What they had dismissed as a primitive world was actually a fortress planet. When the Empire tried to investigate these facilities, Earth finally revealed its planetary defense grid. Massive cannons emerged from mountain ranges. Entire islands turned out to be disguised weapon platforms. The oceans themselves seemed to come alive with hidden bases and defense systems. "How did we miss this?" demanded the Emperor, watching the recordings. "How did they hide so much?" The answer came from intercepted human communications. For centuries, Earth's nations had competed with each other, driving incredible technological advancement. But secretly, they had also worked together, preparing for the day aliens would arrive. Every major war on Earth had served two purposes: advancing military technology and hiding the truth from watching eyes. While aliens might notice tanks and planes, they wouldn't spot the quantum weapons and space-time manipulators being developed in secret. The Empire launched a desperate attack on one of Earth's revealed defense installations. Their most powerful dreadnought, the Imperial Will, fired its planet-cracking main gun at a mountain base in what they called the Rocky Mountains. The beam never reached its target. Instead, it hit what humans called a quantum mirror, a defense system that redirected the energy back at the Imperial Will, destroying it instantly. "You still don't understand," came the human transmission. "Everything you see is just the surface. Every weapon you discover is already obsolete. We've had centuries to think about this." More human secrets emerge. Their primitive satellites were actually quantum-linked communication nodes that couldn't be intercepted or destroyed. Their basic space stations housed temporal weapons that could freeze Imperial ships in time. Even their civilian technologies masked military capabilities the Empire couldn't comprehend. The Empire's supposedly superior shields proved useless against human weapons that attacked through higher dimensions. Their strongest armor meant nothing against devices that could alter the fundamental forces holding matter together. In orbit around Mars, an Imperial fleet discovered what looked like an abandoned human research station. When they moved to capture it, the entire station phase shifted into another reality, taking 3 Imperial ships with it. "That was one of our older facilities," the humans explained. "Would you like to see our new ones?" The Empire's best scientists struggled to understand human technology. It violated everything they thought they knew about physics. While the Empire had mastered 3 dimensions, Humans had learned to manipulate 11. While Imperial ships needed huge engines for faster-than-light travel, humans had learned to fold space itself. Most terrifying of all, the humans revealed they had weapons they hadn't even used yet. Every time the Empire thought they'd seen humanity's full strength, another layer of defenses would appear. In a final attempt to understand their enemy, the Empire sent their best spy ships to observe Earth's military training. What they saw defied belief. Soldiers practicing combat in zero gravity, pilots mentally linked to their ships through advanced interfaces, and weapons that could reshape reality itself. We knew someone would come eventually, a captured human recording explained. Maybe they'd be friendly, maybe not. We couldn't take that chance. Every child's dream of space, every science fiction story, every rocket launch, it was all preparation. We turned our entire planet into a fortress while making it look like a primitive world. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor watched the latest intelligence reports with growing dread. They hadn't found a primitive species to conquer. They had awakened a sleeping giant that had spent centuries preparing for this exact moment. And humanity was done hiding. The first cracks in the Empire's control appeared in the outer systems. Word of humanity's victories spread across the galaxy, carried by merchants and travelers who whispered about the species that dared to challenge Imperial power. On the desert world of Dawn, the native inhabitants watched recordings of human ships dancing through Imperial defenses. Their leader, a wise elder named Dust, called an emergency meeting of their ruling council. For 10,000 years, we believed the Empire was invincible, Dust said, her voice echoing in the underground chamber. Now these humans show us that the Empire can bleed. Perhaps it's time we remembered how to stand on our own legs. Similar conversations happened across hundreds of worlds. Species that had lived under Imperial rule for generations began to question everything they had been taught. If humans could resist, why couldn't they? The Empire's response was predictable. They sent warships to threaten any world that showed signs of rebellion. But their military was stretched thin, trying to fight humans while maintaining control of their vast territory. Then humanity did something unexpected. They started making contact with other species. Small human ships would appear in rebel systems, offering technology, knowledge, and most importantly, hope. We're not here to replace the Empire, the human diplomats would say. We're here to show you that freedom is possible. How you use that knowledge is up to you. The Empire's worst nightmare came true when the Traders' Alliance, a group of systems vital to Imperial commerce, declared their independence. Their announcement was broadcast across all frequencies. We have watched humanity demonstrate that the Empire is not all-powerful. We choose to stand on our own. Any Imperial aggression will be met with force. The Empire sent a battle fleet to crush the rebellion. They found the Traders' systems protected by human-designed defensive systems. The Imperial fleet retreated after losing a third of their ships without even reaching weapons range. More systems followed, the frost giants of the winter worlds, the silicon beings of the crystal spheres, the energy creatures of the nebula realms. One by one, they threw off Imperial control. This is impossible, raged the Imperial Defense Minister, watching their territory shrink on the star maps. These species were content under our rule for centuries. An Imperial psychologist named Gray offered an explanation. They were never content, they were afraid. Humans showed them that fear isn't enough to maintain control. They showed them that resistance is possible. The Empire's military found itself fighting on multiple fronts. Their standardized tactics, designed to control obedient populations, proved useless against rebels using human strategies and technology. Worse still, their own troops began questioning orders. Imperial soldiers who had witnessed human mercy toward defeated enemies started wondering if they were fighting for the wrong side. On the industrial world of Forge, an entire Imperial garrison surrendered to local rebels without firing a shot. Their commander's message became famous across the galaxy. We were told we brought order to chaos. Now we see we brought chains to free people. No more. The humans, true to their word, didn't try to take control of the rebelling systems. Instead, they helped establish a loose alliance of independent worlds. Each species was free to govern themselves, with humans providing protection and technological assistance. In the imperial palace, the emperor watched his empire crumble. Centuries of absolute control were falling apart in weeks. Reports came in hourly of new systems declaring independence. How do we stop this? He demanded of his advisors. The answer came from an unexpected source, a young imperial scholar who had been studying human history. "We can't stop it," she said. "Humans didn't just break our military power. They broke our story. The story that said imperial rule was natural and eternal. Once people stop believing in that story, no weapon can make them believe again." The empire tried to maintain control through fear, threatening to destroy rebel worlds. But the rebels had learned from humanity. They responded with courage rather than submission. As system after system broke away, the empire faced a terrible choice: adapt or die. Their dream of eternal dominion was ending, replaced by something new and uncertain. The galaxy was transforming, and at the heart of that transformation was a simple truth. Humanity hadn't just defeated imperial ships, they had defeated imperial ideas. And ideas, once shattered, could never be unbroken. In the deepest vault beneath the imperial palace, the emperor activated the emergency council chamber. Around him gathered the 12 highest-ranking imperial leaders, their faces grim in the dim light. "We have lost half our territory," the emperor said, his voice heavy. "Our military fails at every turn. The time has come for our final auction, the Planet Killers." The Planet Killers were the Empire's most closely guarded secret. Massive weapons platforms capable of destroying entire worlds. They had been built centuries ago but never used. Even the Empire had considered them too terrible to deploy. High Admiral White stood up. "With respect, Emperor, using the Planet Killers will unite everyone against us. We'll lose what little support we have left." "We've already lost everything," shouted the defense minister. "Better to rule half a galaxy of ashes than lose everything to these humans and rebels." The order was given. Deep in imperial space, enormous structures awakened. The Planet Killers, each larger than a moon, began moving toward rebel systems. But humanity had been ready for this too. As the first Planet Killer approached a rebel world, something strange happened. The massive weapon simply vanished. In its place floated a small human ship. "Did you think we wouldn't know about these?" the human commander transmitted. "We found them years ago. We just waited to see if you actually use them." The Empire watched in horror as their ultimate weapons disappeared one by one. Human ships had somehow moved them into another dimension, rendering them harmless. "You still think bigger weapons are the answer?" came another human transmission. "You never learned that the strongest weapon is the mind." Panic spread through Imperial Command. Their last resort had failed. Some of their highest-ranking military leaders began to crack under the pressure. Admiral Storm, commander of the Imperial Core Fleet, made an unprecedented decision. He contacted the humans directly. "I've seen enough," he transmitted. "My fleet is withdrawing from this war. We won't fire on civilians anymore." More commanders followed. The Empire's rigid military structure, based on absolute obedience, began collapsing as officers chose conscience over orders. The Emperor, desperate to maintain control, ordered the arrest of any commander who showed disloyalty. This only accelerated the defections. "You don't understand what's happening," a human diplomat explained to the Imperial Council. "Your empire was built on fear and force. We showed people something stronger, hope and choice." In orbit around the imperial capital, the remaining loyal forces prepared for a final stand. They had gathered every ship, every weapon, every soldier still willing to fight. The Emperor addressed his troops. "We cannot lose to these upstarts. We are the Empire. We have ruled for 10,000 years." But his words rang hollow. Everyone had seen too much. They had watched humans fight with precision and mercy. They had seen rebels build a different kind of society. The old speeches about imperial glory couldn't erase those truths. A junior officer on the Imperial flagship looked at his combat display and made a discovery that chilled him to the bone. "Sir," he reported, "scans show human ships throughout our formation. They've been here the whole time, cloaked. They could have destroyed us at any moment." The humans confirmed this with a system-wide transmission. "We could end this war right now. But that's not why we're here. We're giving you a choice, something your empire never gave anyone." In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor received the final reports. Half his remaining fleet had surrendered. The planet killers were gone. The rebellion was spreading to the very heart of Imperial space. "How?" he whispered. "How did they defeat our greatest weapons?" The answer came from his youngest advisor. "Because they understood that weapons aren't what make an empire fall. Ideas are. They didn't just fight our ships. They showed the galaxy a better way." The empire faced a terrible choice. They could fight to the death, destroying what little they had left, or they could accept that the age of imperial rule was over. As the emperor looked out at the stars, he realized that humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating their weapons. It was showing that power built on fear could never stand against power built on hope. The war was reaching its final phase, and the galaxy held its breath to see what would emerge from the ashes of empire. The final battle wasn't fought above a contested world or strategic location. It took place in view of the imperial capital itself, where the empire's remaining loyalist fleet faced the combined forces of humanity and their rebel allies. The emperor stood in his palace observatory, watching the massive fleets gather. His remaining ships, though still impressive in number, seemed small compared to the diverse collection of vessels opposing them. "Surrender," came the human transmission. "Your empire is already gone. Don't throw away more lives for pride." But the emperor had one last card to play. Hidden in the system's asteroid belt, his scientists had built something new, a weapon that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. "If we cannot rule," he declared, "then none shall rule." The weapon powered up, its energy readings off every known scale. The Empire expected this would be their moment of triumph. Instead, they received another lesson in human preparation. As the weapon reached full power, hundreds of human ships suddenly appeared around it. They didn't fire or attack. Instead, they created some kind of field that contained the weapon's energy. "Did you think we wouldn't detect this?" the humans asked. "We've been watching you build it. We could have stopped you weeks ago. But we wanted you to see that even your best efforts can't match what we've learned." The Emperor watched as his final weapon was neutralized not with violence, but with technology so advanced it seemed like magic. In that moment, he finally understood what his empire had awakened. The remaining Imperial fleet, seeing their last hope fade, faced a choice. Many ships simply powered down their weapons. Others turned away. Only the Emperor's personal guard remained ready to fight. Then something unprecedented happened. The humans vanished. Not just a few ships. Their entire fleet disappeared, leaving only their allies visible. "We're stepping back," they announced. "This isn't our galaxy. We won't decide its future. That belongs to those who live here." The rebel fleet, composed of all the species the Empire had once ruled, moved forward. But they didn't attack. Instead, they surrounded the Imperial capital in a display of unity the galaxy had never seen. The Emperor received a message from the combined rebel council. "We don't want revenge. We want change. Surrender, and you can be part of building something better than an empire." In his palace, surrounded by the remnants of his power, the Emperor made the hardest decision of his life. He surrendered. The terms were surprisingly gentle. The empire would become a single system state. Former imperial worlds could choose independence or join the new Galactic Alliance. No one would face punishment for following orders, but those who had committed genuine crimes would face justice. As the Emperor signed the peace treaty, a single human ship appeared in orbit. Its message was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Let this be a warning to any who would build empires through force. Humanity wasn't special because we were stronger or smarter. We were special because we prepared. We learned. We imagined. While you saw stability through control, we saw the power of freedom and diversity. The message continued. We'll return to Earth now. This galaxy belongs to all its people, not to any single species. But remember, we're still watching. We'll always be watching. And if another empire tries to rise through force and fear, they'll find us waiting. The human ship vanished, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years had fallen not to superior weapons, but to superior ideas. In the years that followed, the galaxy transformed. The Galactic Alliance became a place where different species worked together, sharing knowledge and resources instead of fighting over them. Former imperial worlds flourished under self-rule. The empire's defeat became a legend, told on every world. But it wasn't a story of military conquest. It was a story of preparation, innovation, and the power of unity against tyranny. And somewhere out there, humanity watched and waited, ready to emerge again if needed. Their warning echoed through time. Never underestimate a species that spends centuries preparing for your arrival. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun.